This conference will now be recorded.
Oh, it looks like we're ready. All right. Give it the 5 seconds that the clock's telling me to give it. All right, beautiful. So, good evening, everyone. Thank you first and foremost for coming out, and those online for joining us for Meet the Candidates Night here in Tilton. This is just for our Tilton ballot. Um, and I want to first introduce who we have here up at the table and what they're running for. So we have Lisa Freeman running for Selectman, Eric Pyra running for Selectman, Catherine Dawson running for Selectman, John Scanlon also running for Selectman. Then we move on to Desiree Daniels running for Supervisor of the Checklist, Robert Lemieux running for Supervisor of the Checklist, and Jane Alden running for Trustee of the Trust Fund. Kamala, thank you for running. Excellent. So as we start out, I'm going to ask a series of prescribed questions. I'm going to give each candidate approximately 2 minutes to answer those questions. I will pause, and then after I answer a series of questions to get the dialogue moving, I will turn to our audience to ask questions. I will give you the same coaching and sort of level expectation. We will engage always with respect and civility. Yes? Oh, you're not caffeinated enough. Yes. Okay, great. And if you could ask the questions through me, and then I'll direct them to the candidates, that would be ideal. All right, great. And we will pause and seek questions for those who are online as well. Beautiful. And Pat has the mic, right? She will walk around with the mic when we get to that point. Great. Ready to begin? So all candidates, you're going to get the same first two questions. And we're going to start with you, Lisa, just because you're right here to my right. Why are you running for the position?
I am running for the position as a new Tilton resident and some experience in local governments. I want to be involved and kind of jump in both feet first in finding out what makes Tilton tick and how I can improve it or work with the constituency to keep it the way it is.
You don't care what anyone else looks like.
Thank you. Eric Pyra, why are you running for the position?
I'm running for re-election for Selectman. I've enjoyed being in service to the residents of Tilton for the last 3 years. The first half of my um, election for being a selectman was kind of taken away by COVID, where we couldn't do a lot in person, so we had to do a lot of things remotely. So it was an interesting process, but there's been a lot of fun being a selectman, where you're stopped in the supermarket, or if you're out and about, residents come up to you and ask you questions and concerns about the quality of life, and sometimes it's a simple answer that you can give to them right away. Other times it's a little bit more complicated and you have to ask other people. Um, Sometimes we make decisions that aren't popular, but it takes a long time to think about some of the decisions we have to make, and we have to do what's best for the town. Um, so there's a lot of changes that are happening in the town of Tilton, and I'd like to be part of that process again to continue the growth and economic development here in the town of Tilton.
And Catherine Dawson, why are you running for the position?
Oh, thank you. Well, I have some experience being a selectman, and I enjoy making a positive difference in the lives of our citizens. I would just like to make a difference. I'm on the budget committee, and I would like to see less spending in the town's budget.
John Scanlon, why are you running for the position?
So all my life I've spent pretty much doing community service for people, right from being a Boy Scout and doing things like that. It's my nature to help out, to be part of the community. I love Tilton a lot. It's great. I love this town. I like all the people in there, and I listen to everybody. I'm running because I want to represent all of the voters and the residents and their thoughts, their concerns, and how they feel about the direction that Tilton should be going. That's my primary goal, is to do that. I have a lot of experience over the years in various committees, volunteer groups, boards, commissions, and I feel that I can do a really good job representing all of you, the voters here, and continuing to do that.
So switching over to our supervisors of the checklist, Desiree Daniels, if you could share why you're running for the position.
I am running for the position because I believe in upholding the integrity of the voting process, and I feel this is my way at making sure the integrity is upheld. And another reason is because two of my uncles are Bernie's grandsons, and neither of them live in the town, and I feel that I would like to carry on in Bernie's tradition and continue forward doing Bernie's job.
And Rob Lemieux, why are you running for the position?
Well, I've been a resident of Tilton for 14 years now, and I'm raising my family here, and I love this town. And the memories that we make here is just, things that I'll carry with me, forever. But something that's really passionate to me is election integrity, and I believe that free and fair elections are the cornerstone of our constitutional republic. And I've gotten so much out of this town, and my family has, and I just want the opportunity to be able to give back. And this is the way that I see that I can give back.
And Jane, if you could share why you're running for the position of trustee of the trust fund.
Yes, I have lived in 10 different communities in 4 different states in my life, and I have never lived in a community that I cared about as much and loved as much as I do Tilton. I've been here almost 20 years now, and I love every part of it. I think they're the kindest, most generous people that I've ever met. And it became my passion, I guess, to give back to this community because you had been so open and loving with me. And I got started as soon as I moved into town, almost on day one. And I've been on the budget committee. I've been on the planning board. I'm on the executive committee of the senior center. I was on the budget committee for 12 years, and I thought it was time to try something different. And it seemed that the thing to do was to try to see what went on with the trustees of the trust fund. And so I ran for my first term and was elected. And if re-elected, this will be my second term. But I love this town, and I want to give back in any way I can.
So while we're down talking with you, Jane, I'm going to switch to this second question that I'm going to ask every member of this panel and ask you to answer the question, what will you use to inform your decision making? You, Jane.
I guess I'll use any tool available to me, as well as talking to some of the people who are in the trust fund. We give scholarships, and that's one of the things that we need to talk with the school about. Talk to members of the community and see if they have any ideas of what to do with the trust fund. We're pretty isolated from the rest of the community because our primary purpose is to administer, to distribute, and to invest. So there's not a lot of contact with the community. But I know that this year, one thing that needs to be done is that we need to visit the school system and talk with them about some of their scholarships and how we can increase the monies that are in those.
Thank you, Jane. And going to you, Rob, what will you use to inform your decision making?
So to inform my decision making, I would use feedback from the community, but also election laws. Always look into those, and the Constitution.
Thank you for that. And Desiree, what will you use to inform your decision making if elected to the position of supervisor of the checklist?
First and foremost, integrity, and then the state laws.
Those are going to be short answers. Moving to you, John, what will you use to inform your decision making if elected?
One of the things that's really important is actually, there's a couple things. Homework. Before you can make a decision, you have to know all the information. You have to do your homework. The other part of it is listening to others, going out and reaching out to others and getting their opinions and asking people that may be in the know and have more information on it. The other thing is looking how it will affect the people, the town, and our community on each decision. Then that includes looking into history of whatever the decision is. And I think that's pretty much it. I'm the ears and words of the people in this town.
Catherine, what will you use to inform your decision making?
Well, probably the most important thing in being a selectman. Oh, thank you. The most important part of being a selectman is number one, what was voted in at town meeting, and not just the current town meeting, but town meetings before, because those things carry over unless voted out. The New Hampshire RSAs, and as John said, research. It's never good to make a quick decision.
Eric, what will you use to inform your decision making?
Well, it's already been said, so I'll beat that horse a little more. Research is always important, getting to be informed with your decisions. Sometimes there's similar issues that happen in other towns, so sometimes you can go look at what's happened in some other towns with, they maybe made that similar decision a couple of years ago. So, what were some of the things that they saw that they didn't count on when you make a decision? There's those types of things that happen. Talking to other people within the town, making what's the best decision for the town, and integrity, my integrity and my conscience, so that when I make a decision, I'm able to sleep at night.
Thank you, Eric. Lisa, same question. What will you use to inform your decision making?
So I'll piggyback a little bit off of what most of everyone on this board has said. I think one of the most important things is constituent feedback, because without that feedback, no matter how you feel about a particular issue, it holds no weight if you're not getting feedback from the constituents. Also, citing state law, which I have a lot of experience with, and really weighing the pros and the cons of any issue. But the constituent feedback is the most important thing. And I think even if someone doesn't come to you, it's our responsibility to go to the community and say, look, we have this issue. How do you feel about it? So I would say that's the most important thing in my decision making.
Thank you, Lisa. So these questions I'm going to ask next, I'm going to randomize who I start with for the selectmen. And don't you worry, supervisor of the checklist, I'll be back to you in a moment. So I'm going to start with you, Eric. And the question is, if elected to the position of selectman, when you look at the end of your term, how will you know you were successful? So I'll read it again. If elected to the position of selectman, when you actually look at the end of your term, how will you know you were successful?
That's a very good question. So when you get to the end of your term, you have to look back and look at the decisions that you made. Where's the town now compared to where it was when I was first elected? And see what progress has been made. Are things for the better? There's a lot of outside influences on that, such as the economy, the job market, the labor market. That can all change. So that's going to affect people's abilities to pay taxes every decision I make. So where's the town at the end of my term compared to when I started the term? That's really going to be my biggest determining factor, is where are we in 3 years?
I know I should go ladies first, but I'm going to go to John. John, If elected to the position of selectman, when you look at the end of the term, how will you know you were successful?
I think one of the things in New Hampshire we're finding is that a lot of people leave the community or can't afford to stay here. And it's important to me, and I look back at the end of my terms. This will be my third term running. Is Tilton a little bit better, or is it a lot better? Are we moving in the right direction? Are we making it that people can still stay in their homes even after they retire? Are the kids getting good educations and all that? And I get a lot of feedback from the community itself, and that is how I gauge how I am doing.
Thanks, John. Stop, I know you're done with your question. All right, on to you, Catherine. If elected to the position of selectman, when you look at the end of your term, how will you know you were successful?
Well, I've been there. Listening to the voters, they will tell you if you've done well or if you haven't done well. Looking at the budget, if it has stayed pretty steady and people's taxes haven't increased dramatically, that's always a good sign. And if I chose to run again, if I was reelected, that would be a good sign.
Thank you. And Lisa, for you, same question. If elected to the position of selectman, when you look at the end of the term, how will you know you were successful?
So before I answer that question, I just want to let everybody know that I'm originally from Boston. So if you hear me dropping R's, it's because I'm originally from Boston. I've been in New Hampshire for 25 years, but just because I was mistakenly labeled a New York liberal at the Northfield candidate meeting. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that I'm originally from Boston. So, at the end of a 3-year term, one of the biggest ways I would know that I've been successful is the feedback from the constituency. That and after 4 years on the Manchester School Board, I can tell you I was very tired. So that means I'm working. And something that Eric had brought up, I thought was interesting, is that when people run into you at the supermarket, they stop you to talk to you. So I think that's another way to measure the success. And again, all of the things that the other candidates have mentioned about lower taxes, making sure people stay in their home, I think that's a given. You do know you've been successful as a select board member. So I would say your level of exhaustion usually is the measure of how successful you've been.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, we're going to give the selectman candidates a little bit of a pause and go back to our supervisors of the checklist. So I'll go ladies first on that with you, Desiree, and ask you to explain to those listening in. Oh, paused. Trying to time myself. Hold on. Tech and asking questions. The question is, why is maintaining the voter checklist so important?
Maintaining the voter checklist is important because, one, the integrity of the vote itself. Two, we have to maintain the people that move out, the people that pass away, and the people that are new registers. If that's not done, how is the integrity of that vote maintained?
Thank you. Robert, the same question. Why is maintaining the voter checklist so important?
Well, everything she just said is I would agree with, and I think that like I said in my first question, that free and fair elections with integrity, they are the cornerstone of our democracy, of our constitutional republic, and we need to make sure that the voter rolls are cleaned in a timely manner. Deceased are removed from the checklist as well, because we want to prevent fraud. We don't want to have our elections stolen. And there are people who look at voting patterns of people and see, oh, this person's not voting. Okay, well, maybe I can steal their vote. And So not having clean voter rolls is an invitation to have voter fraud, and we don't want that. It steals our vote.
All right, Selectmen, I hope you're ready. I'm coming back to you. We're going to do ladies first. Right. Lisa, to you first. So most, if not all, work environments strive to maintain respect and civility. How will you maintain respect and civility even during times of disagreement?
I have a lot of experience with this. I sat on a 14-member school board in Manchester. I mean, it was tense at times, but it was always civil, because nothing gets accomplished if, first off, you allow your emotions to overtake you, and second off, if you're not going to come to a middle ground with somebody, the least you can do is just respect their opinion. I don't think it's a long shot to say that you can still disagree, but you can still be agreeable. So yeah, I don't get caught up in the emotion of decisions. I just find it to be counterproductive. So I wouldn't have an issue with that. Again, 14 members on a school board. I mean, there were times when it was tense, but there was no yelling, there was no screaming, there was no name calling. It's just counterproductive to getting anything done, and you're not always going to win. So I think if you resolve yourself to that and just understand that it's not personal, it's professional, then you're able to maintain the type of decorum that should be on every board.
Thank you, Lisa. Catherine, to you next. Same question. Most, if not all, work environments strive to maintain respect and civility. How will you maintain respect and civility even during times of disagreement? Thank you. Eric, we'll go to you next. You want me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
All right. Most, if not all, work environments strive to maintain respect and civility. How will you maintain respect and civility even during times of disagreement?
Well, it's interesting because as a selectman now, we've had moments of high tension and issues that can divide the board sometimes, and you have to go at the end of the day, and it's been said already, it's business. It's the business of the town, but it's still personal. You still see someone walking down the street, and you don't throw an ice ball at their windshield as they're driving by you. You give them a wave and you smile. You still go have breakfast, or you still go have lunch or something. If you see someone, hey, give them a call. There's still a friendship that is developed amongst the board, but the town's business comes first. And when you're in the table, sitting at the table, business is business, and outside friendships, relationships are different, and those are personal. I mean, I see it in the working world. You sometimes have the heat of the moment where someone gets upset, and I think Catherine said it. You count, or go take a walk. Go take a walk around the block or around the building, just to settle down a little bit and clear your head. Go downstairs if we're upstairs, and you go downstairs and you clear your head, and you come back up with a new approach. But you always have to keep your ears open and understand that not everyone's going to agree with you all the time. And once you can accept that, it makes it a little bit easier. And it's your opinion. You're one of five, and that's what matters. And the majority is three. Thank you.
John, you want me to repeat it? No. All right. Dive in.
All of our meetings are run pretty much by Robert's Rules of Order. It's important that everybody understands those and knows them and knows the proper process if you want to express a point at a meeting. The other part is to be a really good listener. You need to listen to everybody else before you start talking over them or dissing what they say. You also have to follow what the chairman is in charge of the meeting, and hopefully a chairman will follow Robert's Rules of Order, and which maintains a good way to bring points up, whether you're for, pro, or con form, but it maintains structure to the meetings. You've got to remember that everybody's got different opinions, but what we're trying to do is come up with solutions, not throw wrenches into gears. So I'm going to just leave it at that.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Jane, I didn't forget about you. I'm coming back to you. Jane, I think it would help the audience to know from your vantage point and experience if you could explain the role of the trustees and how you're going to fulfill them.
Well, it's like I said a little bit earlier, there's three major roles. There's the administration of the trust fund. There's the managing the money itself. And luckily, we have been very fortunate to have a bank, Bar Harbor Bank, manage for us and get us the best investment. And then we distribute that money. And what was the second part of the question?
How are you going to fulfill it? You talked a bit about the school portion. Just if you could share some other things that you do.
Well, I guess the administration is basically looking at the reports that come in every month, making sure that those reports are doing the best job of return on our investment, and then having meetings to discuss what we want to do if there is a problem, then dispersing the checks when they're requested, when our clients, if you will, for instance, a school or or some other, like the cemetery, and they request money, then it's our responsibility to write a check and see that it gets to them.
Thank you, Jane. All right, supervisors of the checklist. So you've talked about voter integrity, and you've talked about making sure that we have follow our democracy, if you will. If I'll start with you, Robert. If you could talk about literally what are the resources you're going to use to ensure voter integrity?
Okay, so, well, I would use the election manual. I would consult that with any questions that I have. Looking at, I know that with death notices, you can ensure that the deceased are removed from the voter rolls in a timely manner, and just the election laws.
Thank you. And Desiree, same question. What resources are you going to use and tap into to ensure voter integrity?
First and foremost, the resources I would tap into are the two other supervisors that have been doing the job for a few years now. Then I would tap into, as Robert said, the books and the laws and things like that. And just, yeah.
Thank you. Some of these questions are queued up so the audience asks you more questions. All right, Selectmen, last question for me, and then we're going to tap into our audience here. They're itching to ask. I can see it in their faces. Okay, I'm going to start with you, Lisa, and I want you to answer the question. I don't want to start your clock yet. Give you zeros, back to zeros. Yep. I would like you to tell me a little bit about how you see your role as a selectman in relation to the employees who oversee the many areas of our town government. What is your role as a selectman in relation to the employees who oversee the many areas of our town government? Thank you.
So I would.
Thanks, Lisa. We're going to do ladies first. So Catherine, this is to you. Please define how you see your role as a selectman in relation to the employees who oversee the many areas of town government.
Once the Board of Selectmen has hired those employees, especially the department heads, I believe that they should step back and let those employees and department heads do their jobs, unencumbered by interference from the board. I think the Board of Selectmen is there to listen to department heads and help them with any issues that come up. The employees also should be able to come to the Board of Selectmen and let them know if there are any specific problems. But most importantly is not to interfere with the day-to-day operations of those departments.
Thank you. So we're going to go to Eric next. Eric, please define how you see your role as a selectman in relation to the employees who oversee the many areas of our town government.
Well, another good question. So you hire people to do their job. So you hopefully have hired the right people that have the skill set to do the job and the task that is assigned to them as part of their responsibility. And then they report, there's a chain of command. So a lot of things go through the town administrator and we receive reports, whether it's monthly or quarterly. So we receive that information and then, as a board, and we can review that. And if we have questions, we can ask that. And also, if there is an issue with a policy, or maybe there isn't a policy, that there should be a policy. Maybe there's something, I'm just using it as an example. For instance, you can't mow your lawn on Sunday because of whatever. So maybe we need to look at that. Or maybe you can't have pink houses or something like that, where we look at those things and maybe it's, maybe there's an issue there that we can do it, or it's not clearly defined in the policy because you have that one instance that shows up. So they come to you and still and ask for guidance. And other than that, you're kind of hands off. I know I personally, once in a while, I'll just stop in and say hi. And if I have a day off, I'll stop in, say hi, and see how everyone's doing. Just make sure spirits are up. And other than that, you do hire the employees to run the town. So it really should be not micromanaged, but they should be there and oversee that. But those department heads report and you take away their recommendations.
Thank you, Eric. And John, to you, do you want me to repeat the question?
Sure, go ahead.
Please define your role as a selectman in relation to the employees who oversee the many areas of our town government.
So one of the roles of selectmen, the most important, is just to oversee things, but it doesn't get down to the employee level. It gets down to the supervisors of the departments, administrators, and that they bring issues to you. If anything goes wrong or if something isn't working. The other part of that is to make sure that the employees have a safe and healthy working environment in the building, in the structures, and that's really important. But the main thing is we have administrators, we have a police chief, and to allow them to go and operate their departments and bring any problems to us if there is something that's needed, decisions or policy changes by the Board of Selectmen. But the key thing of the Selectmen is we're representing you, the voters, and the residents to make sure that everything works right. And you can sleep at night and know that it's on us. We're going to watch for you. And we filter that down through supervisors who get down to the direct employees.
Thanks, John. So with that, I'm going to look at my lovely assistant, Pat Costantino, who has the microphone. If we could just raise our hands, not a rush. I'm not going to forget about online. And I'll start calling on you to ask your questions. Who's got a thirsty question you want to ask this lovely panel of volunteers? I have more questions I can ask them. I'm prepared for this. No questions? All right, keep thinking. How about our guests online? Do we have questions out in the online audience? Nope. We've missed some audio. Have to hit the button to turn green, team. Any other thoughts? I can keep going. Pat, thank you.
I think we all know that the voucher system is taking money out of the public schools at a rate as anything that the board can do to help um, maintain the amount of money schools need without increasing our property tax to make up for the fact that our taxes are paying for private schools and homeschooling. Thank you.
Sure. I'd have to see how much money we're actually talking about that we lost in comparison to last year, but um, education freedom accounts are the law. And it really, from what I know of them, the portion that isn't being sent to the town is the state adequacy portion, which averages between $4,500 and $5,000 per child. But the local property tax portion, which is 3/4 of property taxes that are collected, is going directly to the town, in spite of the fact that the child is not sitting in the seat. So first off, if it's the law, we'll follow the law. Second off, I think as a select board member, you always keep your eye on the bottom line, which is property taxes. And I do know there are a few bills in the State House right now that are working to mitigate any of those huge property tax increases that have come down from the overwhelming support and use of the education freedom accounts. So I would say keeping our eye on the budget, the bottom line, and then seeing what is going on at the state level as far as any additional money that might be coming down from them to address any of the losses that we have. And I also know that there's a 2-year grandfather period right now where the state is paying that extra money. So the cities and towns won't be hit with these huge property tax increases. So watching the bottom line, seeing what bills are up at the State House to mitigate any of those property tax increases that no one really wants to get hit with, and just carrying forward with it.
I will admit that I'm not an expert on the school budget only because the selectmen don't have a lot of say in the budget of the school, but it's keeping um, our eye on the bottom line and making sure that everything's there. And then if we do have questions, trying to get either attend a school board meeting or inviting the school board to have a joint meeting with the selectmen so that we can get a better understanding, because everything here in this district is affected by 3 towns. So it's a little bit different than a lot of places, but we don't have much control over their budget other than the tax rate is determined, it's made up of 5 different parts. So that keeping our budget, working on our budget to keep that down as low as possible will help that.
The Board of Selectmen doesn't have any direct influence over the school board budget or any other business they have. But working closely with our legislative representatives and paying attention to laws that may be passed at the state level that'll influence, like our state aid and whatnot, is very important. And advocating with our legislative representatives to not let the state lower that state aid is very important. The Board of Selectmen, if they have concerns, certainly can attend school board meetings and let those school board members know, that we have concerns about what they may be doing or planning and how it'll affect our taxpayers and residents.
As Catherine said, it's mostly controlled by the school board, and that's one of the things that kind of ties the hands of the selectmen. However, I myself, I think Catherine has as well. We were on the formula committee. I think you did. So if you, can you hear me? Oh, okay. And Tim, yeah, on the formula committee. And I can tell you, if you want to be very confused as to how all of this funding gets put together, ask somebody that's been on the funding committee to explain it. One of the things over many years, Tilton never had a representative that was representing Tilton or from Tilton. And now we do. Yeah, Juliet's sitting right there, and she keeps her eyes out for Tilton and how it affects us and how it affects the budget and our taxes. And Juliet is a great listener. You can call her up. I'm not going to say her phone number over the air, but yeah, and she works on that diligently. So being on the formula committee, I've done that along with Tim and Catherine. Attend all the district meetings, express things, talk to your school board, and yeah, we just got to keep at it. Thanks.
I'm just election happened.
So as everybody knows, we all love the Tilton Island. We all love it. We know that the bridge, we got to do something. We absolutely have to. If anybody has looked at or seen the pictures or anything, the first step to that is before we can actually do anything, we have to be able to say that we're going to pay for this somehow. One of the things that we're doing, it's a warrant article, it's 1.2 million, I forget the exact amount, for funding it. That's not what it's going to cost the taxpayers. What we're looking for is matching grants and to get as much funded from the outside. So we're looking more towards $500,000 maximum for doing the bridge. But we have to get that article passed or we can't do anything. We're another year. Each year that bridge is getting worse and worse and worse. So I'm in favor of doing something, but the first thing is we have a ballpark budget for it. If we get that approved, then we can work. We need to get bids, proposals, and all the other stuff done after that. So yeah, I'm for repairing the bridge or we got to do something. We're not going to let it go. It's been a long time. We've been trying to keep a very integral part of our community going. Thanks.
I believe that we should do what we can to repair the existing bridge. It does have historical significance, and replacing it with a more modern bridge at this time appears to be more costly than repairing what is already there. And I think the Board of Selectmen have been very diligent about looking for grants and other ways of paying for it.
I agree that the bridge needs to be repaired or restored. It is a unique bridge. It's the only bridge left like it in the country. So it has great historic significance. There are many grants out there. And as John mentioned, that there is a warrant article looking for $1 million, and that's a matching grant. We have a grant that we're applying for $500,000. So doing that will help us. We've also had other community partners that are looking to partner with the town and economic development, that they can also provide money to help restore and pay for the restoration of the bridge. So ultimately, our cost to the taxpayers will be as minimal as possible, but we have to take this first step to show the grant writers that we have, that we are serious about restoring the bridge. So we have to approve this warrant article. It is of great historic significance. We have lots of history here in the town of Tilton, and this is just a small part of it, but it's a significant part of it because it's a cherished natural treasure here or it's actually a man-made treasure, most of it. But that people here and enjoy. We have the concerts out there. There's weddings that are out there. There's just people that go out there and they cook on the grills. So it's something that it touches every resident of the town and the surrounding area. So it's something that we need to, keep as in its historic state.
So I've just recently become aware of the Tilton Bridge and what the proposal is, and I'm honestly, I'm running for select board. I'm going to tell you, I always get a little leery when I hear, well, it's going to be $1.5 million, but we're going to get grants for $500,000, and then the taxpayers only have to pay $500,000. Well, that's a lot of money, and I do know that bridge has huge historical significance, but I'd like to see how much we can actually commit through stakeholders and community partnerships monetarily before I think we should proceed with the repairs. We're headed for some rocky times financially, and I think that prioritizing all of our issues, roads, bridges, schools, it definitely is important. So I would say, I know how important this is, but I'm very leery when I hear those words. It's $1.5 million, but we're going to get a grant for $500,000. I'd rather see the grant for $500,000 and then proceed with the project. So it's important. I understand that. I'm a newcomer to Tilton. I understand that, but I also understand that I can see it through really unbiased eyes because I'm not a person who has lived here for a long time. So again, I'm leery of a $1.5 million project. Maybe we'll get $500,000 to fund it. So I would say let's proceed with caution.
New Hampshire in general is that
That's a very, very good question. And we have some of that that's happening now in Tilton. We have 3 large scale commercial projects that are happening. There's the expansion of the U-Haul property. There's the preserve at Winnisquam, and then is a dialysis center that's being built right up the road. So continuing to make the town business friendly is key to that. And doing, the Route 3 corridor is going to be the main central area for development. So unfortunately, you're going to see some, people selling their houses as I want to call it the creep heads down Route 3, because as you get the preserve going, that's going to be a major project, major attraction, and you're going to have associated businesses that want to be in that area. So you're going to see some development, but all that development is going to continue as long as it's not development that's going to bring high demand on our services. So as our police and fire, because if we have to increase our police and fire, then that's going to negate the effect of the gains that we have in that. So it's really watching that. So it's economic development, but being careful, not just allowing anything and just watching what comes in and trying to, make sure it's the right choice for the town of Tilton.
Thank you, Eric. And we'll move over to John.
Yeah, so we in Tilton are very fortunate. We have an area, exit 20, and it's a gateway for people to go up to the lakes and that. it provides a really unique situation where businesses pay a lot of our taxes. That's very fortunate for us. Um, I love kids, I love families, but our zoning, we have to keep that proper so that we don't go and start putting in large housing developments, turning farms into housing developments. Like I said, I love kids, but it's expensive. If you put a 4-bedroom house in, you're going to be spending more in taxes to supply the services to that house and the school too. So you got to be careful on development. So our zoning laws are real important. We do have the industrial park that could provide some more business type for providing some good jobs for people. And, keeping our development very contained into a specific area. That's a key thing for keeping our taxes down. And of course, spending. I don't know if I missed anything else on it. Yeah.
Thank you. And so we'll go to Catherine next.
The Board of Selectmen, there's not a lot they can do to entice new development into town. That's really the master plan, as John said, the zoning ordinances. But what the Board of Selectmen can do is when we do have developments that are being created, such as we have now, is to not look at those as cash cows and not spend those dollars and come up with new ideas and like I said, spend those extra tax dollars, let them go to help lower our taxes even more. We certainly know that the schools educating our young people is not getting cheaper.
Thank you, Catherine. And Lisa, please.
So from what I do understand, select boards really don't have much, they really don't develop plans to bring in new businesses. But I would say if we have a Department of Economic Development, something we may want to look at is, does Tilton have a brand? I mean, that seems to be what all marketing people do these days, is develop a brand. So if we were to be asked on the select board how we would entice businesses to come into Tilton, I would say, well, do we have a brand? And are we working with the state economic development office? I do know the governor's office is big on trying to get more businesses into the state. So I would pull in as many resources as possible. But again, from what I understand, the select board really doesn't have a very, an extensive reach when it comes to enticing businesses into town. But I can make a few phone calls. I mean, I know people, so. But there are ways to do it if we were really faced with that issue.
Thank you, Lisa. Kathy.
Dollars with so before
That's great. So I think that John said it quite well. Is the ordinances and zoning is pretty rigid around what's business and what's residential. And I agree with you. That is the reason why we moved to Tilton from Manchester, is because we love the rural character of Tilton. We love this area. So I would say, looking at the zoning, and if the zoning in fact aligns with keeping it as rural as possible, but making sure that we're building businesses in a different area, we can always look at that. Everything is always up on the table for improvement. So if there's something that's missing, then the select board can definitely change that.
Thank you, Lisa. We'll go to you next, Eric.
Well, the way the town is now, there's a lot of restrictions that with the zoning that's in place now. There could be a few tweaks that could be made along the way. I too enjoy driving through the back roads of Tilton, enjoying um, the rural character that parts of the town have, but there's also parts of the town that have very urban components to it. And keeping the urban components in those areas and creating a nice blend of that. But again, that's done through zoning and through planning. Maybe the master plan needs to be relooked at, re-examined for the times that are changing, so to speak. But there's some things that I would have done differently years ago, but those things have been done. So we kind of have to live with the choices that were made and the zoning that was in place for certain parcels of land here in town years ago, and try not to pave everything, as you say. But it's also making sure that things are not polluting the water. Salt of all the winter. Think of all the salt that's going to wind up in our river and go downstream, and that all goes down, and that protects our drinking water because the aquifer is right underneath our feet right now, and we want to make sure that that stays strong, for future generations, because otherwise it just gets more expensive. So it's really just looking at everything and tweaking things, because we are running out of space to develop here in town. There's not many things, but we also have to look at things that may be able to come in that might be a lower impact. Senior housing being one thing in the future to be attraction. It doesn't put a burden on schools necessarily, but it's worth looking at. So
Thank you, Eric, with 4 seconds to spare.
I'm
And Catherine.
Well, the town has a master plan. And in years past, I've actually talked to planning board members and zoning board members who weren't even aware that we have a master plan for the town of Tilton. I think it's very important that our zoning board, especially, who is the board that can give variances and waivers, if you will, for our zoning ordinances, is very aware of our master plan and what the effect is when they keep giving variances to our zoning ordinances. I've always been a great supporter of educating all of our committee and board members to the laws surrounding their charge.
Thank you. And John?
So one of the great things, well, actually, I think one of the best ways to preserve the character of this town, and that would be to elect Kathy Mitchell onto the zoning board. But
Point of
she
order,
does.
she's not on the ballot.
Yeah, we can write her in. So
Please don't write in people
I don't want
for
to use
the
up
zoning
all my
board on the
time,
ballot.
Mr. Moderator. I please don't take my time. Anyway, so the key thing is the master plan. We have a master plan. We spent a lot of time working on it. And everybody that comes into town has little reason why they don't have to follow the ordinances or the rules. Maybe it's, it's in a 50-foot setback here. We're just going to move it to 30 feet. And the more we keep accepting those, we're creating a completely different feel than what the master plan was. It's very important that we do adhere to the rules and that we can say no. We can say no to billboards that have, bright lights and automated signs. We can say no to having a solar farm on Main Street, right, or in one of the most beautiful areas. We can do things thoughtfully and do it right. And that's the way to do it. Follow what we and the voters have always said and voted on all of these rules and ordinances through the legislative body, and we need to stick to those. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Just want to read a comment, but I think some of this was touched on in some of the answers. With the rise in remote working and working from home, have we considered making changes to allow for higher density, age-restricted, or non-child friendly housing? This could increase taxes without adding cost to schools. So I think some of you touched about that. I want to make sure that comment was read out. Are there more questions from the audience? Pat?
A lot of you have touched on economic development and in various different ways. I just want to hear from each of the select board candidates what their opinion is of the definition of economic development. Thank you.
The definition?
I didn't know there was going to be a quiz.
Economic development.
So I think I don't want to sound obtuse. I think in a lot of ways it's pretty self-explanatory. We're trying to develop our economy as a community. We're trying to make sure that we have the resources to pay for the things that we need as a community. So to me, that's what economic development means, that we'll have the means to pay for the things that make our community a great place to live, good quality of life, good schools, etc. So that's what economic development means to me.
Thank you, Lisa. Eric?
I actually sit on the current Tilton Economic Development Committee, and we've looked at it when we first started, and we focus on an area. So it's from park to park. That's where we're focusing. So we started small with small improvements in town. Lights, you notice some of the trees have been cut down. It's little things that we make changes to make the town more attractive to others passing through. And then that will say, well, that's where I want to place my business, or that's where I want to, raise my children, because it's a vibrant downtown. We have a very beautiful downtown. So it's trying to get some of the the correct businesses in a mix, taking advantage of different opportunities that are out there. Our neighboring city to our west, Franklin, has vibrant, exciting things going on downtown there, and hopefully we can get some of that to transition. And we also have a bike park in our other town in Northfield. So getting some of those people that come there to come into Tilton to support our local businesses and getting people to attraction there. I remember when sitting in the audience is Deb Shepard when she was posted for the administration position, town administrator. It was turn right into Tilton, and I helped her, make a video for that. And it's kind of, someone mentioned the slogan, so it's right off of exit 20. It's right at the traffic lights in downtown to get into the Tilton and getting people to come into downtown to help support our businesses. That's what's going to help drive economic development in the town of Tilton.
Thank you, Eric. Catherine?
I think the word economic development has a pretty broad meaning. I think for the town of Tilton, it should be what's going to improve the lives of our residents. I believe that we should be looking at how we could bring better, higher paying jobs like into the industrial park, improving the flow of traffic, which some people avoid downtown Tilton because it can be congested and difficult to drive through, especially with the commercial trucks that park on Main Street to unload. Things of that nature, things that are going to really affect our taxpayers and residents in a positive way financially.
Thank you. John?
So, we copy and read. I have notes. So, real jobs for residents. We don't need fast food places for residents. Yeah, they're great to have people driving through town want to go grab a quick sandwich or something. But the industrial park, it would be really nice to go and get that with some real good jobs up there, some better manufacturing jobs, some engineering things, and to try and encourage that to happen up there. And one of the ways is through make sure we have the proper utilities and that get up through that area. The other important part is the small businesses that we have. We have a lot of startup businesses, small businesses. I had the opportunity to operate a business in the center of town, start up and had it. And around me, there were empty stores. It was very difficult, but I made it and kept doing that. The other thing is encouraging and rewarding entrepreneurship. Um, there's a lot of these little empty places. Get the landlords to work with people on something to, maybe a rent rate or lease rate that maybe lower it the first year, and if they can make it second, third year, then they can work it out. But economic development, we want real jobs. The downtown area where we can make it look nice, as has been happening over the last year. And so it will provide the small businesses with people who want to stop. Parking, and parking. We need to work on that. And entrepreneurship.
John, 1 second over. I was about to give you the hook. Nice job. First one. Other questions from the audience? Sir? Hold on. Yeah, she's coming right up.
Um, ex-
That's something I'm really big on. I appreciate that question a lot. Um, our biggest asset and our greatest asset in this town is all of you, the people, and all of the voters. Everybody has something they can do. What I have been trying to do and get done is to map all of these assets that we have, track them down. Everybody, if they were here, fill out a card. What are your hobbies? What things would you like to do? Or how can you help out? And if you ask those people, they will jump right in. I am a hands-on person. I volunteer to do everything. If I see it not getting done, I'll roll up my sleeves. I'll jump out there. I'll do it. I'll crawl under the senior center, fix something or whatever. We don't have to just throw money at stuff. We need to throw talent, and it's all right here around us. And that is the key thing, is mobilizing those assets. Thanks.
Thank you, John. And those online couldn't hear the question, so I'm just going to repeat it for those online. The question is around what is your perspective on volunteerism as a resource to the community? So we'll go to you, Catherine.
Through the years, I've seen a lot of examples of volunteerism, to washing off our statues that were absolutely filthy, to planting flowers in the planters down by the Tilton House of Pizza, just cleaning up Main Street. We have a gentleman that owns a store, and when he walks to work every morning, he ends up with this huge bag of garbage that he's picked up along the way. We have a lot of projects in town that wouldn't have been possible without volunteerism. Riverfront Park is an example of that. So I think it's a wonderful thing.
Thank you. Eric?
We need more volunteers in town. As I look around this room here, I see people that have volunteered on many things in town, but there's also, I see a few new faces, and that's a great start. But we need to get more people. We're a town of about 3,500 people, and I would say on a regular basis, I probably see the same 75 or less people that volunteer for different things. I see Mr. Jessman sitting out here, and he volunteers in the summer, no matter the temperature, and cooks hot hamburgers and hot dogs for the Island Concert Series. I see Deb Shepherd, she does Old Home Day. I see the Mitchells and they do conservation, but we need more people to do come out and help when there's things and community events going on. When you hear about, trunk or treat downtown, come out and participate. That's in a way that's volunteering, but that's getting people to volunteer. There are a lot of different things that are out there. Sorry, Mr. Hardy, your head was blocked by Deb Shepherd. But Mr. Hardy, he does a lot of the park programs. He leads that charge, and he does that. But again, it's coming out and volunteering and getting that, and that develops community spirit, getting everyone to do that. And I think my time is up, so that's it.
Oh, you were good. Thank you, Eric. Lisa,
So I
please.
think volunteerism is one of the bedrocks of our society and of the United States. I mean, that's how a lot of things have gotten accomplished, is through volunteerism. And, being a small town, I can see where if just a fraction of everyone came together and volunteered, so much would get done. So I'm huge on volunteerism. And I think in some ways, even though select board members are elected, there's no salary attached to it. So that's kind of a form of volunteerism. Checklist, anybody who runs for an elected office, especially in New Hampshire, there's usually no money attached. So that is definitely one way you could volunteer. But I think it's absolutely pivotal in order for a community to maintain. You must have volunteers.
Thank you, Lisa. Chuck, you have a question?
Do it like this, Chuck.
Hi. We were talking about the master plan. The master plan should, in fact, be the guiding in this town, but it is not. We have such high turnover on boards and commissions, with one exception, and that's the Conservation Commission, which has been very stable for many years. However, people boards on the commissions, and yes, the ZBA and the planning board do not necessarily follow the planning. And I think it's up to the select line here to try to get together annually with all the boards and commissions and try to work together and to stay and work behind what is the plan, the long-term plan for this town. Because if we just keep taking project in here and wants to put thing in, whether or not it's or another car dealership, that doesn't necessarily is not in the best interest of the town. I'm sorry, it really.
Other questions? I do have a good question I can ask all the panelists if you want me to dive into that. All right. From Judy Tilton. I'm going to start with the other side of the table. You guys have been itching to talk, I'm sure of it. This is my hope to have them learn a little bit about how you think about our community. Okay? So if someone asked you to define the Tilton community, how would you define it, Jane? That's a straightforward answer.
Giving.
Thank you, Jane. Robert, if someone asked you to define the Tilton community, how would you define it?
Compassionate and prideful.
I didn't ask them to do this in one word or less, but we'll go to Desiree. Desiree, if someone asked you to define the Tilton community, how would you define it?
As someone that has lived here literally my whole life, 37 years, the Tilton community is supportive, kind, loyal, and we're a bunch of people that has each other's backs.
Thank you. John, how would you define the Tilton community?
That's a tough one. It's like a big family. We all are like a huge family, and sometimes we don't all get along with certain things, but we all sit down and have Thanksgiving meal and do that. until people have a couple beers or something, but and that starts back up again. But um, it's a great community. It's a great place to raise your kids and families and do just participate in things. Everybody's watching out for each other. Everybody's also going to report on each other if they're doing something wrong. As a selectman being on different boards, I can have somebody call up and be upset about something and voice their opinion. And people in this town are very willing to voice their opinion and don't feel bashful about doing it. They also express all of their gratitude very well. Um, and, especially when they give me a blueberry pie. Um, but it's, I guess it's the best way, a big family. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Catherine, someone asked you to define the Tilton community. How would you define it?
Everything everybody else has said. Tilton is a very close-knit community that's very family-oriented. When there's a tragedy in town, people are very willing to come out and help and be supportive. I think it's a great place to raise a family. I've certainly enjoyed living here.
Thank you. Eric, someone asked you to define the Tilton community. How would you define it?
It's a close knit town, and it's neighbor helping neighbor, and anyone is ready to help anyone in this town, and if in a time of need. And that's really what it comes down to. I raised my family here. I'm still raising my family here because they still live with me. So, but that I chose here in 2001 to raise my family, and I've been here since then, and I don't regret it.
Thank you, Eric. And Lisa, if someone asked you to define the Tilton community,
I would have to say Tilton is probably one of the friendliest places I've ever lived, and I've lived in a few places, and it's so different from the 24 years that we spent in Manchester to not even being in the house that we own right now for a year. And I know all of my neighbors, and it's not because I went knocking on their door. They came knocking on my door and offered tomatoes and wanted to help, with snow blowing, with the first big snow. So I would say this is one of the friendliest places I've ever lived.
Thank you. All right, we've done this for an hour and 15 minutes. Do people have other questions they'd like to ask before we start clapping? All right, so let's give a big round of applause to all of the individuals. You deserve it. Just first and foremost, for being brave enough to put your name to paper. So good luck in the election. Jane, I'm going to vote for you. Me too. Have a wonderful night, everyone. And everyone who came out, thank you so much. And all those online, thank you for listening in.